Recently, I've been on a newly discovered, undiscovered, unheard of to me Blaxploitation movie kick. I watched a few movies. I started with Abar, the first Black Superman. Then I watched the Black Gestapo. And most recently, I watched The Thing with Two Heads. This, like the Black Gestapo, was directed by Lee Frost. And also, this, like the Black Gestapo, was an experience to watch. It's a movie that is trying to do a lot, that is trying to say some things. I want to give my thoughts on it. I'm gonna be straight up with you. Much like the Black Gestapo, I didn't like this movie. Not gonna say it was a bad movie, but for me personally, I didn't like it. Lee Frost, I think he wanted to say certain things, but I think he wasn't able to get them out the way that he wanted to. And I said it before, I'll say it again. I said it in the Black Gestapo video that I did. I do think that white directors can direct black movies, blaxploitation movies. They could have directed them, but I also think there's a certain point where the connection isn't there, or points that should be connected because these are blaxploitation films. They don't connect. There would have been things that would have hindered them to possibly not allow them to do everything that they wanted to do. Very similar to my thoughts on Abar, the first Black Superman. I think there were probably certain things that they wanted to do, but they did not have the budget and the means to do exactly what they wanted to do. Even though I personally did not like this movie, I'm not going to say it was a bad movie again, and I think that there was a lot of potential in it. And I can kind of see what Lee Frost wanted to do and what he may have been trying to say, but at the same time, I think there were a lot of things that were lost. Another thing that's really interesting to me is there was another movie called The Incredible Two-Headed Transplant that came out seemingly a year before this movie. Very similar vein, very from what I read on the Wikipedia page, it might even be the same movie, but it came out a year before. And I may actually have to watch The Incredible Two-Headed Transplant just to see what it was about, just to see kind of the similarities, the differences. Maybe this movie worked in ways that The Thing with Two Heads didn't work. Maybe it didn't work at all. The reviews that I saw were not favorable for this movie. Spoilers for The Thing with Two Heads. I'm not going to go too deep into it, but the basic premise of this movie is there's a doctor who has a severe medical condition and he doesn't have long to live. So he's perfected this technique and he decides to transplant his head, his brain, into another living body in order to continue living and continue to move forward. There's some hygiene scenes and stuff that happens that the movie kind of goes a few different places and it goes a little bit all over the place at the same time. The movie was interesting, and I don't know if this was a point they were trying to make or it's just me looking at it a certain way, but it starts off with the doctor doing his first experiment on a gorilla. He transfers one gorilla's head into another gorilla's body. The part that was so crazy to me about the gorilla is the gorilla escapes and it runs into this convenience store. All these people start freaking out or whatever, but the cops never show up. For whatever reason, the cops never showed up. And they even helped this same doctor where this gorilla escaped from, the house it escaped from, they helped him later in the movie. I just thought this was so wild. I think this movie takes place in like California, possibly. Maybe that was just a thing in California at the time. Maybe this was a metaphor for you know, gorillas, unga bunga. I don't know. I don't know what Lee Frost is trying to say with this opening gorilla part. It makes sense because I guess gorillas would be the closest to humans through the transplant. So I'm not gonna say Lee Frost was wilding or he was doing too much. I'm not gonna say it, but I think he might have been trying to say something just a tiny bit, just a tiny bit. Also, for what I'm assuming they had to work with, they actually did a really good job of kind of showing the two heads on one body. They did it well. I'm not gonna say it was great, but for the time, they did actually fairly well. And it wasn't as jarring. There weren't as many moments where it didn't seem unbelievable. It seemed kind of realistic when you realize this is a 70s blaxploitation movie. I was with this movie. For a lot of it, I was with it. It wasn't as intriguing or interesting to me. I think it provided a lot of thoughts and I thought about certain things. But I think the moment where this movie really lost me is there is a chase scene that ends up being, I want to say this chase scene was almost 30 minutes. It was between 20 and 30 minutes. And it was long. It was like almost like a Smokey and the Bandit type chase scene. It was comical. It was over the top. There was a lot of stuff that was happening. It was a lot. And I think that, even though I finished the movie, I think that was truly the point when this movie lost me. The chase scene was just too long for no reason whatsoever. It didn't progress the story forward. It didn't really do anything for the movie. It was just in there for no reason. And I won't say exactly what happened because I think people should at least watch this movie for themselves to see what happened. But the ending definitely lost me. If the chase scene hadn't completely lost me, the ending completely lost me. It was just kind of, man. That's really all. The ending was just meh. And again, I think that goes back to Lee Frost and him possibly not being able to connect certain dots, certain points that should have been connected. I don't think I've ever seen Jordan Peele say anything about this movie, The Thing with Two Heads, but he has to have seen it. I don't think it's just coincidence that there's so many similarities between The Thing with Two Heads and Get Out. There's like eerie similarities. Get Out was like a new age, modern horror. I'm not gonna say it was blaxploitation, but black horror movie, a black science fiction movie. It improved on a lot of the points that The Thing with Two Heads was attempting to make. It did them a lot well. It confined them a lot better. It stripped out certain things and it made it a lot better. Because there are so many similarities. I think some may have been unintentional. Some were clearly unintentional. Things that coincidence probably that these two movies have these things in common. But there are a lot of similarities. Again, Get Out is much better, but it's later, probably had a bigger budget, was probably able to do more. I think it was an improvement on the original concept of The Thing with Two Heads. My final thoughts, interesting concept, just like the Black Gestapo to me and a little bit Abar. Poor execution, really because of budget, means, the time. It just, and like I said, I think there were certain points, certain places this movie could have gone, and they did not go. I would suggest people watch it. It was a decent watch. It had its entertaining moments, but again, for me, I wasn't feeling it. Did not like The Thing with Two Heads. I don't think we need a remake of this movie because Get Out kind of set the bar high. Somebody could try, maybe do like more of a sci-fi comedy type movie remake. They could try, but I think Get Out set the bar too high for this to be remade. If you've seen The Thing with Two Heads, what are your thoughts? Do you have any other blaxploitation movies that you could suggest to me you think I should watch? I don't think I'm going to give any more thoughts on blaxploitation movies for a while, but if anybody gives me any good ones, I might. Thank you. Have a good one.